Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. How you doing today, my brother?
Good man. Another really good week of football in the books. Moving right along. A couple
Man,
of real doozies though when it comes to the score.
oh, man. You and I, we were just speaking about this off air. Well, also, I apologize in advance if I'm sounding a little weird. I'm catching a little bug, so apologies in advance. But this was like the turning point for a lot of teams this year, and this week in particular, we got to see where a lot of teams stand and play in the field. So let's just jump right into it with our Week 8 recap. Starting with the Thursday night game, the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Rams, but the Rams coming away victorious in a 30-20 game. But there was a late face mask at the end that was not called, that should have been called. That was another poor officiating game by the referees at the end there.
Yeah, again, the officiating needs to be better. There needs to be some type of accountability for calls like that because that's how people get hurt. Good strong win with the return of Cooper Kupp. Vikings, let's see if you can come back from this or if this is where you fizzle out.
Yeah, this like I said, turning points for a lot of teams here. Let's move to New England with the New York Jets coming to town and the New England Patriots coming away victorious 25-22 in an upset against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Again, a turning point for teams, and man, the Jets go from a chance to not a chance.
This is
It
just a laughable loss. It
Yeah.
is such a laughable loss, and I'm so glad that these delusional Jets fans are finally realizing it wasn't going to work from the jump. And you guys dove into it because you were force fed it, and now it just blew up in your face again.
Now, it's still technically possible for them to make the playoffs, but probably not. This was actually a very interesting stat. This was the first time in NFL history where a team has scored over 20 points, has gave up less than 250 yards, and did not turn the ball over. Those three things, and still lost the game. Teams are 750-1, and the Jets are that one.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
It's a wild stat. I've heard that from Dan Orlovsky on First Take. That was an absolute wild stat, but
That
man,
is insanity.
I think that's just indicative of just how the Jets season is so far this year.
Yeah, and it's who they are as a franchise
Man,
and who they will remain to be.
again, still so much to unpack there, but let's move on from the Jets and New England. Let's move to Jacksonville, where the Packers and the Jags had a really good high-scoring affair. Packers came away victorious 30-27, but Jordan Love getting hurt again, but Malik Willis coming in and finishing strong for the Packers.
Good strong win from them. Again, Malik Willis can play, man. I have faith in Malik Willis. I always have. I think the Packers, they have one of the better quarterback rooms right now with Jordan Love and Malik Willis as a tandem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of good things happening in Green Bay aside from injuries, but Jacksonville slipping again. The Jags are sliding down the standings, and you hate
And
to
up the
see it.
lotto picks.
And up the lotto pick. That is right.
Up the lotto pick ladder.
Oh man. Let's move to the other part of Florida, Miami, down south, where the Cardinals and the Dolphins played Tua's first game back from injury, but Cardinals with an upset late game field goal to win it, 28-27. But Tua, I gotta say, there was a point in the game where he actually slid, and I was very proud of him. I actually applauded that moment where he took a slide, and I was like, "Thank God you're safe, man."
You see, and that's just, it's still silly to even try to go for that because momentum, it's just, something could still go wrong.
Mhm.
But good win for Arizona. They have a couple of tough matchups up ahead.
Mhm.
So we'll see if they can keep that momentum moving.
Let's move to Cleveland, where the Ravens came to town to take on the Browns, and the Browns upset the Ravens 29-24. Jameis Winston's first game as a starter this season, over 300 yards, a couple touchdowns. He was really wheeling and dealing. A lot of dropped interceptions and a lot of dropped passes by the Ravens. We need to really practice that. The Ravens did acquire Deontay Johnson from the Carolina Panthers yesterday, as of this recording. So we get a new wide receiver in the room, but personally, like, I'm not a fan of that move because that's not where we're like, yeah, our wide receiving core is not, jacked, but we need help on defense. That should be the big priority right now. Our defense is bleeding, and the Browns took advantage, and I got to give all the credit to the Browns.
Not for nothing, you added a wide receiver that can't catch the ball to a wide receiver room that can't catch the ball.
Exactly.
Enjoy him. He definitely makes your blood pressure rise because he just drops some fundamental passes. Hopefully he can clean it up.
Hopefully, I am not optimistic about it, but we shall see. Moving forward,
you can enjoy him.
Let's move to the other part of Ohio, Cincinnati, where the Eagles came into town and beat the Bengals 37-17. Eagles on a 3-game winning streak.
Good win for them, but again, I've been saying this for a while now. The Bengals are starting to flatten out. I think a flat line is on the way for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bengals fall to 3-5 for the season, and again, it's still possible for them to make the playoffs, but it's the road to get there is going to be a lot harder as the season goes on. Let's move to Houston, where the Colts came to play the Texans in a nice divisional round matchup. Texans come away victorious over the Colts 23-20. But CP, I think there was a bigger story with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, definitely an interesting turn of events where Anthony Richardson pulled himself out of the game on a last-ditch effort drive. Like, he had a scramble for a play. I'm pretty sure it was on like a 3rd or 4th and short. Got the first down, burned their timeout, and pulled himself.
Mm-hmm.
And his reasoning was he was tired. So, I'm not going to say it's because of that, because it's, I guess, sure, it's valid. Joe Flacco has now been named the starting quarterback of Indianapolis. It is no longer an experiment. Joe Flacco is their guy for the rest of the year. Anthony Richardson, I do not fault you for doing what you did, but that is the outcome. And I don't think you should have expected anything less. Your play has been, I like you, you're athletic, your play has been lackluster.
Mm-hmm.
It's been poor, to say the least. You have a couple of good throws, but overall it's been pretty bad.
Well, he has a 44 completion percentage,
that's atrocious.
That's worse than Jamarcus Russell's completion percentage.
I'm pretty sure he's right above or right below Bailey Zappi.
He is.
If I'm not mistaken. He is low. He's in the low 200s.
Yeah, I don't fault, players for getting tired, right? You're putting your body out there on the line, right?
But you're a professional athlete.
You're supposed to be a professional athlete. You're not supposed to admit that to the media, because the media is going to eat that alive and be like, well, why were you tired and took yourself out in a very pivotal moment in the game?
I heard you stopped.
Yeah, so you hate to see it, but honestly, this needs to be a good lesson for, young quarterbacks out there, where it's like, it's okay to be tired, but at least, don't.
You can't pull yourself out of the game.
Your team relies on you, and you need to be a professional athlete to make sure that your body's in the best position possible to perform at the highest peak, because that's the whole point of being a professional athlete.
And let's be honest here. The Colts are looking at you to see if you are their future right now. They know Joe Flacco is not their future. They're trying to see if you are. And you just stamp your report card with a giant question mark. You have to hand in a resume at the end of your rookie year to say if you're going to continue to be a franchise guy. And you pulling yourself out on a comeback drive late in the game when you have a chance as a rookie, that unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. I don't fault you for what you did, but you got to. This is the outcome: is you're not going to play again for the rest of the year.
Let Joe Flacco do, because Joe Flacco can win games, man.
Right, and you can't even say barring injury because who knows? There's another guy on that roster who could play, and probably will play all 4 quarters if he needs to.
It's a 53-man roster, man.
Right, there's someone else on that roster who can do it, and you've shown you can't.
Oh man, let's move. Let's go out of Houston. Let's move to Detroit. Let's move to some fun stuff.
Oh my god.
Well, fun stuff if you're a Lions fan. Some terrifying stuff if you're a Titans fan. Lions won 52-14. Their second 50-piece of the year. CP, are the Lions just the class of the fucking NFC?
The Lions are primed for a championship. It's just what it is. They're primed for a championship. There aren't many teams in the NFC that I think could even stand to them right now. 250 pieces in the year, that is menacing.
Yeah.
That is menacing. And to hold, I believe both times they scored 50, they held the other team under 21.
Yeah, it's
scary
crazy.
what's coming from Detroit right now.
Now, obviously, let's take into context that it's the Titans, right? Like we knew the Titans were going to get thrashed. The 3 of us picked the
but not like that.
Not like that, but that's in such a dominating win like that. It really showcases the true capabilities of this offense, and I think that even Detroit scoring 52. I don't think that we've seen the true capabilities of this offense. I still think that there's more to come. And
because there's still more to learn, and they're great at learning.
And that's the thing, though, is like if you're a Lions fan, like this is a great time right now to be, because they are playing amazing football, and I think the best is yet to come for Detroit, man.
It's funny how I remember a couple of years back, you and I were talking, and it was when the Lions are good, it's good for the sport. Lions are good right now, and it's great for the sport. Not
only are they good, but they are one of the best teams right now.
Right, and it's great for the sport.
It's amazing. So I know we'll be talking Lions later on in the season, but man, it's really fun to see. Let's move to Tampa on another fun game to see, where it was the Falcons coming victorious over the Bucs, 31-26. Kirk Cousins has really been clicking with this offense. He found a home in Atlanta, boy. He has found a home in Atlanta, and just like Baker has found a home in Tampa too, and it's great to see. But Atlanta now taking the lead in the NFC South, man. This is very interesting.
We knew this was going to be a tough fight, but the absence of a Hall of Fame wide receiver and another 1,000-yard receiver, it shows, and it showed. And Baker, he clearly brought the team to get that team that he had together. It's just you can't fit the absence of those two at the end of the day, and the cohesiveness of Atlanta being the team that they are. This is the outcome. It was a good, tough game. I expect the Bucs to fight the rest of the year, but there's going to be a lot of close games that they would have probably won had them two been on the field.
And this could have been one of them.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. Oh no, I 100% agree with you, man. Let's move on. Let's move to LA with the Chargers and the Saints, because we talked the Falcons Bucs last week, but we also talked Saints and Chargers with Kevon last week. But this was all Chargers all day. This was 26-8 was the final, but man, Saints could not move the ball for anything. Good on the Chargers to get another win, and they're really stacking wins so far this year. But man, the Saints, they looked lifeless. Aside from a few runs by Alvin Kamara, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty. Like we were saying last week, it's going to be pretty pitiful for a while coming from New Orleans. They're at that breaking point where are you going to look down a true rebuild, or are you going to try and fight for the rest of the year? And this is what we were talking about earlier in the year with them, where they fizzle out in the middle of the year too. They came to an abrupt halt, from injuries, poor play on field, mostly injuries to a bunch of top guys. But you're losing critical games at this point. These games are critical. You got to be able to play, and if you can't score 10 points, you can't compete.
You're not going to win a lot of games.
You're not going to win a lot of games because you don't have that defense.
Yeah.
You don't have a defense that can hold people to 10 points or under.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's evident to see, man. But we'll be talking more about the Saints this week because they have a very interesting matchup. Let's move to Seattle, where a team that scored 10 points, the Seattle Seahawks, against the Buffalo Bills, who scored 31 points. Bills over Seahawks. But, man, Seattle just looked lost on the field, man. They could not get anything going past that Buffalo defense. And good on them, too. Good on Buffalo. They played a solid game. It's hard to play in Seattle, but they pulled it through.
Got to say, man, Buffalo is playing really clean football right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're not making many mistakes. Josh Allen had another really strong game. He is playing his best football this year, and we will get into that.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we will. There's a lot to unpack with Buffalo, too, and just a lot of good happening from there. But let's move to Washington, where this was one of the wildest endings that you could see. Washington won over the Bears 18-15, but the true headline was the Hail Mary at the end. Washington. CP, how would you describe it, man?
All right. I mean, you can really only describe it exactly how it went. First of all, before we get into how the Commanders Hail Mary to the win, let's talk about the third quarter coaching strategy from the Chicago Bears.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most pitiful display of coaching I have ever seen in a football game. You have two really good running backs who are having a very strong game.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna give a handoff to your backup center? What the fuck is the matter with you? And that was your longest play of the third quarter. It was 15 yards.
Mm-hmm.
With your backup center. What is the matter with you? Your quarterback,
man, but that's so absurd, man.
Your quarterback, Caleb Williams, had 38 passing yards up until 4 minutes in the third quarter of the game. When am I supposed to be impressed with him?
I don't know.
Because he is unimpressive. But now going to the final play of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Bears are up. The play is off. People are moving.
There's no time on the clock.
Game's over, but the ball is in play. The camera pans. What do you see? You see a Bears safety taunting the fans while the play is in action.
Mm-hmm.
He notices the play is in action. He runs out of position, touches the ball, goes straight up, and lands in the Washington receiver's hands. With no one on him in the end zone, they win by 1 point.
3 points, but it was a walk-off touchdown.
Right, walk-off touchdown. Had he just did his job, which was play prevent defense, get in the way of that receiver specifically, the Bears would have won that game.
Mm-hmm. It's, again, indicative of coaching. I mean, we've talked about Matt Eberflus a lot. That's a name that I think now people are learning for the first time, and I think that, again, discipline is indicative of coaching, and the Bears were not disciplined enough to win that game. And I think, too, at the very end of the interview, Eberflus was asked about the plays leading up to the Hail Mary, and he said that those plays didn't matter. Meanwhile, Dan Quinn, who I'll give my thoughts on Dan Quinn in just a sec, but he said that the plays leading up to the Hail Mary were very indicative and getting up to leading them to win the game. And like two coaches with two different outlooks on the same set of plays, I think is very indicative. And I think Dan Quinn, I don't, I think that this has been an eye-opening game, at least for myself, where it's like starting to realize, oh, maybe he's been a really good coach all along throughout his coaching tenure.
Right. And he
And
just
it's like,
didn't have the players.
and he just exactly. And when he was in Atlanta, he was really good as a fucking coach, and players loved him. And now he's in Washington. It's like kind of the
And he's
same
a really
thing. Like,
good fucking coach.
a lot of players are really rallying behind him and really buying into his philosophy. And it's like sometimes you just need to be at the right place. And I think
Right.
I think Dan Quinn right now is at the perfect place he needs to be in his coaching career.
He's a perfect replacement for Ron Rivera, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So let's move from Washington. Let's go West Coast to Las Vegas, where the Chiefs played the Raiders. It was all Chiefs all day. 27-20 was the final. But this was, man, just another sad pummeling by the Raiders.
The Raiders are just bleeding out profusely, and it's like I feel bad for the talent that is on that team, because if they just had someone who could build a culture
Mhm.
around Max Crosby and a couple of other guys, they would be an all right team. It's just you guys decide too early and you make the wrong decisions.
Mhm.
Getting rid of Derek Carr the year after you signed Devontae Adams, like, why would you do that?
Mhm.
You know, getting rid of fucking Khalil Mack, why would you do that? And then just going for Max Crosby. Could you imagine the duo that would have been Khalil Mack and Max Crosby?
Man, it would have been nasty. The world wasn't ready for that.
Right. We weren't ready for that to come from a Raiders uniform.
I don't think the world's ready for the Raiders to be good just yet. So
And they're just gonna slide down and just become the doormat again.
it's the Chiefs'
It's the Madden
time.
curse.
It's the Chiefs' time, man, and Raiders are just another 2 wins that the Chiefs are going to stack every year. So
It's the curse of John Madden. The Raiders are never going to be good again.
rest in peace, John Madden. Let's move from Las Vegas to Denver, where the Panthers took on the Broncos. Final was 28-14 Denver, but Sean Payton got a lot of criticism for running up the score against the Panthers. A lot of the Panthers players were, be like, "Hey, man, you're running up the score," but I think it's like, well, you couldn't stop him, so it's like your job is to stop them from scoring, and you couldn't. So they can score if they want to, but Denver stacking wins, 5 wins for the season, man. That's pretty nice.
Good for Bo Nix. Again, I'm telling you, Bo Nix can lead a franchise. When it comes to that running up the score business, did he have to march down the field and drive it down your throats in the last 2 minutes? No. Did you let him march down the field in the last 2 minutes and just march down your throat?
Mm-hmm.
Kinda. It's not his fault. You couldn't stop him on defense. You see that he's playing aggressive. You can't expect the game to be over.
Mm-hmm.
He's literally showing you this is what you need to be better at. Play for 60 minutes.
Yep. It's a 60-minute game.
Take it as a lesson. Play for 60 minutes. It's never over.
Absolutely. Oh man. Let's move to San Francisco, because this turned into a 60-minute game. 49ers beat Dallas 30-24, but Dallas again fell behind early, or fell behind in the third quarter. And then it was all up to Dak to try to play hero ball. I think the big stat here is Brock Purdy had 58 rushing yards. He ran the ball effectively, and that was the Cowboys' total rushing yards too, was 58 yards. So Brock Purdy ran for 58, but they ran for over 200 on the Dallas defense. I think this offseason, Dallas just completely forgot that running the ball was a thing, because they don't do it on offense and they don't stop it on defense. And so they may have just forgot that running the ball happens in the NFL, and that it's part of the NFL. But man, good win for the Niners. Another bad loss for the Cowboys.
It seems like the Cowboys have total amnesia when it comes to how to succeed in this game. Like, you have to have a stout defense. What is happening on you've been totally exposed as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that takes at least until week 11 or 12. You've been exposed for weeks now. For weeks, you guys have been exposed. You guys are bad. The Cowboys are bad this year. This is the worst Cowboys team I've seen in a very long time.
Well, if I'm going to quote a good friend of mine, someone's getting benched and someone's getting fired. So,
well, I don't know about that. Remember, Joey Jones is like in love with Mike McCarthy, and he loves Dak Prescott. So, bench and fired, I think starting and paid.
I didn't say about McCarthy or Dak. I just said someone's getting benched and someone's getting fired. So,
I mean, Jerry Jones is going to forget this week ever happened like he does every week.
I know there's so much to unpack with the Cowboys too, but man,
fucking Jerry.
Goddamn Jerry. Okay, let's move to the final game of this past week, and that was the New York Giants coming into Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. Russell Wilson's second start as a Steeler, and he didn't disappoint. 26-18 was the final, but again, Russell in that offense under Mike Tomlin, he's looking good. And if I can copy Mike Tomlin,
yeah, no, good strong win. You know, we needed to go into the bye week with the amount of wins that we have.
6,
you know,
yeah.
With 6, we had to take 6. You know, I remember in the beginning of the year, off air, we were talking. I was like 7 at best, 6 at minimum. You know, because if we go in with any less, it's going to be rough. But now, looking at that gauntlet, the gauntlet doesn't seem nearly as menacing anymore. On paper, in the beginning of the year, you see all the division games because of how good the Bengals were supposed to be, and how everyone projected the Browns to be, how lopsided the Eagles are. So the only menacing games really is Washington, both of yours, and Kansas City.
Yeah.
You know, so that gauntlet is starting to become much more winnable down the stretch.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Steelers sitting atop the AFC North at 6-2. Oh, man. So that is our Week 8 recap. A lot of great games this past week. I'm really excited for this upcoming week. Let's start with the first game that we want to talk about, and this is a big divisional game, and that is the Dolphins and the Bills. But before we do that, real quick, I just want to just step aside. I heard my phone there. I just want to make sure no one was dead. So just give me 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, he's gone. You know, Tua's on his second game back. This should be a very interesting game. This is going back into Buffalo, where everything all started with his head injuries. So, the idea of Tua still not... Oh, there he comes. Everything good?
Yeah, I just had to make sure no one died. So.
All right. So while you were gone, I was talking about Tua.
Mm-hmm.
Game 2, coming back into Buffalo, where it all started with his head injuries. This is a very interesting matchup, especially because he still refuses to... I don't know if he hasn't gotten his new helmet yet, but he still refuses to wear that fucking Guardian cap.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is... I'm still kind of... I'm unopposed to go against Buffalo here, because of just, like I was saying in the recap, just how clean Josh Allen is playing. He's only thrown 1 interception this year. So all the shit talk about how he throws the most interceptions in the league, can't bring that up this year.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't him.
No, but I mean, Josh Allen, at this rate, he could make an argument for MVP, man. He is playing absolutely lights out. He's got, was it 17 total touchdowns for the year? And 1 interception. Only been sacked 10 times. He has 1,766 passing yards with 200 yards rushing. So near just under 2,000 yards of total offense so far.
Right.
And that is, I mean, if you're a Bills fan, you like what you're seeing. And I think that it's coming off an off season where a lot of people kind of fell off the Bills, where it's like, oh, they got rid of a lot of key defensive players. I know you and I, we were kind of very off the Bills, and getting rid of Stephon Diggs, and it's like, oh man, like who's he going to throw to? Well, the people that he's throwing to have stepped up. Shakir has 421 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Keon Coleman has 396 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Dalton Kincaid has 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. So like 2 wide receivers and a tight end with over 300 yards and multiple touchdowns. That is very impressive to see. And that's not even talking about James Cook running the ball, because now they are a more run-oriented team, that it's opening up this pass game that it's for the Bills. It's like seeing the field in full for the first time, right? Like it's because with a lot of the Bills' offense in the past, before last year, it was a lot of just Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. And that seemed to be just what it was. Now you kind of you get rid of Stephon Diggs. You still put young receivers there. It opens up where he's not dependent on a receiver, and it opens up more for better play. We saw this too with Patrick Mahomes as well. Like when Tyreek Hill left for Miami, the field,
that absence wasn't missed.
They didn't miss a beat. I mean, of course, he still has Travis Kelce as his number one, right? Like he'll have Kelce until Kelce retires, right? But it opens up more of the field and really allows them to perform at the fullest capability with their athleticism. And Josh Allen is one of the great athletes playing this game currently. But let's flip it over to the Dolphins. And I want to talk about Tua as well.
Go ahead.
He coming back from the concussion. I'm not a Dolphins fan. I was very scared for Tua, and I know a lot of people were too, because we're like, please
just be safe.
And there was that tension just watching this game, and I'm watching this game on the TV, and he runs on his left side, and then I'm like, oh no, please slide. He slides, and it's like, it's a breath of fresh air. I was like, oh man, he learned how to slide. Thank God. Okay. And I think from there and the rest of the game, after you kind of had that sigh of relief where it's like, okay, let's do this. Dolphins look good. I got to say, they looked very good. I wish that they ran the ball a little bit more than they gave, A-Chain 10 touches. They gave Raheem Mostert 9 touches. So you have 19 touches between the two of them. I would have upped it a little bit more if I was them, just to really kind of take the pressure off of Tua. But Tua played good. He was 28 for 38, 234 yards and 1 touchdown. No interceptions. And I'm like, that's solid, man. And that's
right.
It's again, night and day what he means to the Dolphins and opposed to other quarterbacks, because it's a different Dolphins team without Tua. Now that he's back, this game against the Bills, if the Dolphins really want to save their season, because right now they're sitting at 2-6, because despite Tua playing good last week, they did lose to the Cardinals.
Right, they still lost.
Despite playing good, they didn't win. And they didn't win in his absence either. I think the only win was against the Patriots. And that was it.
Right.
That was the only other win that they got. And now they're sitting at 2-5,
2-6.
right? 2-6, and it's like, if you have any chance to make the playoffs, man, you have to win this game. It's a divisional wins count like twice as much. They're just as important. But right now, the Bills are running away with this division, because Dolphins are third in that division. Second in that division is the Patriots. I don't know. They're sitting second.
No, they're sitting second right now.
Yeah,
the Patriots second. And the Jets.
Yeah, so it's and both the Patriots and the Jets have 2 wins as well. So,
right.
So it's the Bills with what 6 wins at the moment, and
Right.
and Dolphins with 2 wins. You have to close the gap. You have to close the gap, and like if the Dolphins are to make the playoffs, it starts with this game, and it's not a primetime game, but it's in Buffalo before it starts getting really cold. You have to take and two, you're back. You're as healthy as you can be right now at this point in the season. You got to take this opportunity, man. It's a tall challenge to play the Bills right now because they're looking like one of the best teams right now. But man, Dolphins need this.
Yeah, and the thing is, what concerns me the most is he was able to slide against an Arizona defense. Buffalo's defense is a lot more aggressive than Arizona's defense. His timing was right in Arizona. If his timing is off by any margin in Buffalo, all signs point to this season being over very quick. We all not saying that it was intentional. Again, this is where it started, was in Buffalo because of how aggressive they are. They are a very explosive defense. I hope to God that Tua has figured out timing against this defense in their pursuit, and he can come away hopefully with a good enough game to win. But like you said, it is a very tall order because Buffalo is one of the best teams in the league, and having a 4-game head start in your division, and we're about a week away until we start seeing teams starting getting statistically eliminated from the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw something earlier this week where the Cowboys have an 11% chance to make the playoffs where it stands.
They ain't making
So
it.
they lose again. You're probably not going to make it, but you lose one more game, you're out.
Pretty
That's
much.
the same line that Miami is riding right now.
Miami,
New England, the Jets,
and the Jets,
the Raiders. There's a bunch of teams right now that are teetering on that scale from being all three in the AFC East.
Yeah,
one game away from being done.
Crazy.
Done. One loss, you're out, and that's across the board this year.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many teams at this point where it stands are 2 games away from elimination, and it's not even week 12 yet. Like, we're not even in week 10. It's like, what the fuck? What is happening?
There's 9 games left in the season, and for a lot of teams, it's like you could say it's practically over, but like realistically not. I mean, it's again, theoretically, if you're a team that has 2 to 3 wins right now, if you want to make the playoffs, you pretty much have to win out. And
you're allowed maybe one more loss.
And we've seen it too, because in my mind, I refer back to the 2012 Washington team. RG3's first year. Mm-hmm. They went 3-6 and then won out the rest of their games. So in my mind, I always go back to that. I'm like, even if you're 3-6, you still have a chance. And then they won that division. So it's
once 7 hits,
it's possible. What?
Once 7 hits, you get 7 losses on your belt.
True, but we've also seen other division winners with a losing record, with a sub 500 record. Obviously, that's not looking like that for the AFC East this year. No, because the Bills are, again, if they beat the Dolphins, they're going to run away with this division, and it's not even. And I think that it's not only would they run away with the division, but they could put themselves in prime position to not only be top, like, second seed, they could be the first seed in the AFC, because they still have yet to play the Chiefs in the regular season. I know we're still due for that game, whenever that is, but Bills have beaten them in the regular season before.
Right, it's the postseason that everyone's worried about.
It's the postseason. And I think that if they keep stacking wins and force teams to come to Buffalo in January, I think that really, like, that would be so advantageous for the Bills. And of course, it would be very heartbreaking once the Chiefs come in there and just beat them. But it's but we don't know that. That's the
Right,
thing.
we
Is
don't
like
know that anymore.
we
This is a
don't.
different Bills team.
This is exactly, and I think that this is right now probably the best Bills team under Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. And I think that it's surprising because of how many players and veterans that they cut or traded away. It's they're really starting young, and I think that's to their benefit right now. Like their defense right now, 20 sacks, 8 interceptions, 8 forced fumbles. That like they are
They're unbelievable right
they
now.
are opportunistic defense. Their offense is clicking. I want to give a shout out to linebacker Dorian Williams, number 42 on the Bills. He has 72 total tackles, man, but he is a second year player that is
Right, he's a sophomore.
honing in right now and excelling beyond what I think a lot of people had expectations wise, because typically Matt Milano would be that middle linebacker, but he is dealing with injuries, and I don't think he's on the team anymore. But you have this guy at a key part of the quarterback of your defense, and
He's proving to be that.
so number 42, Dorian Williams on the Bills. Keep an eye out for him, man. He's turning into something special. But man, this is a really tall order for Miami. I do want to say another stat that I was looking at: turnover differential.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills right now actually have the best turnover differential in the league right now. And that may not be surprising, but they're plus 11. That
Right.
is huge. Miami, they're -3. And I know that that's a lot of without Tua, but even still, like
Even still, you got to be able to play.
stat. That's a team stat. That's not just on the quarterback, but that is
Right.
indicative of the defense, indicative of both sides of the ball. But man, it's now or never for Miami.
You see, it's almost as surprising. I don't even know that it's surprising at how well the offense is working this year. Because at first it was a little like you said, you and I, we kind of backed off when they got rid of Stephon Diggs. But you look at it holistically, and you look at how good of a receiver Stephon Diggs is. You're gonna want to gravitate towards him and throw the ball to him. Teams pick up on that rather quick, and if you don't change that, that's how you become the quarterback who throws the most interceptions in the league. But now you take that out, and you could almost call this fat trimming when it comes to getting rid of the vets and getting rid of a superstar. It's let's get all the voices out of the room and let's start fresh.
Mm-hmm.
There's one voice, one sound, that's Josh Allen who's leading this team. And that's what Buffalo coach wants. He wants Josh Allen's voice to be the voice in the locker room. Stephon Diggs was a voice. All the vets on that defense, Von Miller, Tre'Davious White, all those players, they were voices that were echoing over Josh Allen, and Josh Allen has a good message for that team. It's we're gonna play together, and we're gonna win. And he is proving to be one of the most fluid This is one of the most fluid football teams in the game right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are, again, complementary football, where you're playing both sides, offense and defense, in tandem, where it's, the one foot leads the other. You're getting good stops on defense, which is then giving you good field position on offense, and you're taking advantage of that, scoring, letting your defense rest, get back on the field, make another stop. And it's really great to see coming out of Buffalo. I know, again, they're not a perfect team, but they are a really fun team to watch. So I was just kind of looking up, when do they play the Chiefs? They play the Chiefs November 17th in Buffalo this year.
That should be an interesting game.
We might want to circle that game come that time. So that's going to be very interesting. But especially with the Chiefs still undefeated at this point in time. But man, this is going to be a great game to watch, and I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. It's gonna be a fun game.
Any final thoughts on this one?
Just keep your heads up, man. You gotta understand what Buffalo is capable of right now. It does not look like there's much that can stop them. Mm-hmm. And I hope Miami keeps it competitive, because this can go one of two ways. And one way is it gets very ugly.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's gonna be a fun one. So let's move on to the second game that we want to talk about this week. This was kind of a last minute decision because this was initially we were supposed to have a guest on. I think we're moving it to next week, but we were going to talk Bears. But let's talk Saints and Panthers. And I know what you're thinking. A lot of people are thinking right now, like, why the hell are they going to talk about these two teams? But I think
we're doubling down on the Saints.
We're doubling down on the Saints, right? And yeah, I know it's a little weird, right? Again, but we like to talk about all teams, right? All teams in the NFL. And I think now might be the right time to talk about the Panthers because it's midway during the year. We kind of know what they are, the doormat of the league. But I I really want to kind of unpack this one, and especially with the Saints this week after that horrendous loss against the Chargers. That was really, really poor to see. But I was say, you mind if I start, CP?
Yeah, go ahead.
So both of these teams right now, combined records, sit at 3-13. This is a lot of the ugly in the NFL. And I think that it's ugly right now for two different reasons. And we went into it last week with Kev. And a lot of the Saints have been dealing with a lot of the same. A lot of the same general manager, coaching, just coaching tree, keeping veterans, right? And keeping the veterans as long as you can, even if it's to the detriment of your cap. And they have overstayed consistency, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has hurt them in time. I think a lot of fans, and Kev was saying that last week, like he would welcome a rebuild. Like he would absolutely welcome a rebuild, and I think that it's very overdue in the city of New Orleans. It may be unfortunate right now because I know we only have a few game sample size of Spencer Rattler, but he's struggling right now, and I think that that's not indicative of necessarily him, but just the larger coaching issues that New Orleans has. They're still run under Dennis Allen, and I know Kev had very strong opinions about Dennis Allen. But it's you want to really inject a lot of youth into this, much like what the Bills did, right? They injected a lot of youth this offseason, right? I think that the Saints really need to inject that youth. And I think that for the Panthers, it's the complete opposite, where David Tepper has had change almost every single year that he's been in the league. Like something, he needs to have something big, either a new coach or a new quarterback or new something new every year. And there's no consistency with the Panthers. And I think that when these two teams come together, it's crazy to think that obviously New Orleans blew them out week 1, right? Scored 40 points on them. Now you come back to week 9, you're one game shy. There's only one game separating between you two. And if the Panthers win against the Saints, then the Saints are now the doormat of the league at that point. And that is crazy to think about, where it's like, again, started off 2-0, putting up 40 points, and then have lost every game since then. That is really tough. That happened similarly to the Jags a couple years ago, but they didn't put up 40 the first 2 weeks. They were 2-0, and then they lost it out the rest of the season.
Right.
I know you remember that year.
I do.
And for the Panthers, man, I feel so bad. Every time we talk Panthers, I have to talk about David Tepper. And it's just because he is just kind of the root of the problem. Billionaires are not patient people. They want things now. Like, he wants the Panthers to be good now, but no, it's a process. It's a process. And this season, obviously, wins are going to come scarce, right? Dan Campbell, right? He only won 4 games his first year. He didn't win a road game until like his second year in the league.
Right.
You have to trust the process. And right now, their head coach, Dave Canales, he's I don't know how to really judge him right now. He's an offensive guy. I think he was a wide receivers coach for some team. I forget offhand, but offense is struggling, defense is struggling. Uh, Panthers don't do a lot of things right. They're complaining about the Broncos scoring on them, but it's like they can't stop teams from scoring on them. They had that one game with Andy Dalton against the Raiders, but I mean, it's the Raiders. It's not anything crazy, but it's crazy to think that as bad as we think the Panthers are, the Saints are just right there next to them. And that's very disappointing to see both teams too, because it's fun when both teams are competitive, right? It was less than 10 years ago where Drew Brees and Cam Newton were duking at it and it was
Right.
fun. Now you got Spencer Rattler and Bryce Young, and it's not really a game that a lot of people want to see. And we sit here talk about this game, and I don't think a lot of people really care for this game, but it's just indicative of how quick teams can go from good to bad. And the margin of error in this league is minuscule. It takes just a couple of plays here or there, changes a whole season. And right now, both teams are looking at the draft next year.
Yeah, and it's upset. It's again because it's for two different reasons. The Saints, they got hit with the injury bug heavy. But that's again, it's next man up. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again for Spencer Rattler. You got to take it with a grain of salt because just how many young guys they do have on that starting roster right now. They have like 4 or 5 rookies that are on that starting roster right now, mostly playing due to injury. But you got to have direction as rookies. So I saw something today where the Panthers have said that they're going to commit to Bryce Young for the rest of the year. So gear up. It's going to be rough, but again, that is like what you said. That is how quick it goes. You go from being in the conversation to we are in total purgatory and now we got to claw ourselves back up. It's a grind to get to the top, and as soon as you get there, you can fall off in a year. It happens time after time after time after time again. And it looks, at this point in time, it looks like it's the Panthers and the Saints' turn. The Panthers have been on this path for a couple of years. The Saints, this is a very abrupt halt that they had on there. I think they had 80-something points in the first 2 weeks, 40 and 43 the first 2 weeks. And then now they can't score 10.
And to think that last week they only scored 6 offensively, and they got a safety on the special.
They got a safety.
Yep.
Right. So you show glimpses of a lot of athleticism, but both of these teams, you have no direction as to who you want to be, what do you want to do, what is the message that you're trying to send to these players that they can get behind. If there's one thing that is showing true, it's you got to have a message for these guys to get behind.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a rebuild, if the message is rebuild, okay, we can work with this and let's work together to rebuild ourselves. But if you're looking at a brand new team and you're trying to scream championship, you got to be realistic as to what you guys want and what you guys are looking forward to as the year goes on. Both of these teams are fighting for a lotto spot right now. Panthers are looking to get number 1 overall. I don't think that they're going to draft another quarterback with Bryce Young, so I would think that they would immediately go to offensive line. The Saints, however, depending on what Spencer Rattler has to show, maybe they do dip back into the quarterback spot. You know, they just extended Alvin Kamara. They still have a couple of solid wide receivers. Their offensive line isn't terrible. It could use work, but I don't think you necessarily need to burn a lottery pick on an offensive lineman. There's a bunch of starter ready linemen in the draft all throughout. Um, Maybe you do go back down the quarterback road.
Maybe I think for the Saints though, a lot of it is
Or it's
depth.
defense.
It's a lot of depth. When we spoke about this last week, remember, um, their wide receiver depth, aside from Chris Olave, who did return last week, which was nice to see, and Rashid Shaheed, um, who's injured for the year. They have Cedric Wilson, Mason Tipton, and Bub Means. My man
My
Bub
man
Means.
Bubs.
um,
Bubs. Oh,
but the Saints are a very top heavy team where it's like they have a lot of aging veterans and they ask a lot of these veterans to do. Where it's like you need years realistically in the league, and it's a very weird. I don't know any stats to back this up, but you kind of need a year fresh from veterans, or not from fresh completely, but like where you allow younger players to step into roles of leadership for your team.
mm-hmm.
And teams that do that, we see that kind of happen as the year unfolds. What players are stepping up. And I think it's easy to look to Washington this year, where a lot of young players are stepping into, roles of leadership. Obviously, Jaden Daniels, but Dan Quinn's got everyone buying into them, man. Terry McLaurin, he's been a very strong leader for them, and I mean he's been there for years, but now he's like a lot of people gravitate towards him. You look at the Bills, as we just discussed with what was it, Dorian Williams. He's again a young player, second year player, stepping into those a big role too, and like hopefully that players that perform well earn a voice, earn a louder voice in the locker room because they can back it up, right?
Right.
And I think that when multiple players are playing well, then it's not the voices don't overshadow one another. The leaders will shine, and then everyone else will just be in support of like, let's follow him. Like he's our guy.
Right.
He's our guy. The Lions have rallied around Jared Goff, right? And that is his team now. Buccaneers with Baker,
The fucking
Atlanta
Browns with Jameis Winston.
Browns with Jameis Winston this past week. Great example. Exactly. And that's all it takes too, is just one person to step up and say, I know what you can do. We can do this together and we can win this
Right.
game.
And it looks like both of these teams are looking for that. And as much as you and I both love Cam Jordan, he's probably getting tired of being that voice. He's on the way out, so someone else is going to have to become that voice. And I would think the next in line would be Tyrann Mathieu, but even he's on the back half of his career too.
Yeah.
He's not going to be in the league much longer. He's in what, year 7? Year 8?
I think longer than that, mate.
Maybe even longer.
Might be 9 or 10, I think.
Right, so he's not going to be around much longer, 2 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to be left with just a bunch of young. Then it's Alvin Kamara. Then Alvin Kamara's got to be the voice. And again, even he's in fucking what, year 7 now. So he's got maybe 4 years left, 2 great years if he's lucky.
It's for this Saints and Panthers, man. Again, we talk both on the good and the ugly. And I think that right now, both teams are just devoid of direction and
Right.
devoid of just a voice to just guide them there. Because it's when you lose games, it's hard. It's very hard. It's a sickening feeling as a team, right? Like you never want to lose. And as fans, obviously, you feel that too. It's like kind of like a ripple effect, right? And I just hope that winning cures all, but it doesn't cure let me rephrase that. Winning does help, but it doesn't cure all. And I think that for either of these two teams, look, more than likely, yes, they could tie, but more than likely, one of these two teams is going to win this game.
Right.
And I think for whoever does, I think that that's a big breath that they just kind of exhaled, like, okay,
Well, yeah, it's a stop the bleeding win.
Yeah.
It's stop this bleeding right now, and can we please figure out what's happening?
yes,
Until either of these teams walk away with a win, the both of them are just gonna be they're just bleeding out. It's like the Raiders; they're just bleeding out right now,
Mhm.
and someone has to step up in both of their respective locker rooms and be like, "All right, enough is enough. We're gonna stop playing for ourselves, and we're gonna start playing for the team. And the first team to play together is gonna win this game."
Yep.
Because everyone's playing to survive versus playing to win.
And this is in Carolina too. I wouldn't expect. I mean, maybe a divisional game you get a kind of a turnaround, but
I don't see a turnout coming. That's the problem.
I think the person that needs this win the most, I think, is Bryce Young, and I think that
I agree.
he is probably the person that needs this the most because, again, you're a first overall quarterback. You had a lot of expectations and a lot of burden to bear being the face of a franchise, right? And obviously, your ownership and leadership do you no favors, of course, but obviously he struggled, and he's under a new head coach, so he's trying to, after what was it, his head coach last year was fired mid-season.
Right. So he's being handed one of the worst hands as a young quarterback that can be physically handed to.
So he's not even halfway through his second year, and he's on his third coach.
Right. It's similar to the Justin Fields problem when he was in Chicago. It's you're being handed an impossible situation and being told to do the best that you can. I feel for him.
Yeah, I think a lot of comparisons would be like with Baker in Cleveland, because again they were struggling there, but like he also in the first couple years,
But he brought success immediately.
Well, he
went from 0-16 to 7-9.
Yes, but every year in his first 3 years, he did have a new head coach.
Right, but he still brought success. That's the big difference.
Yes,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean.
But I'm saying like he still had those head coaches that he had to learn
under.
I
agree.
And it doesn't help development, right? It helps with consistency.
Right. It hinders everything. But it stunts growth.
Exactly. And obviously, Bryce is not Baker because he is not bringing success immediately, and he's not winning games. And I think that he needs a lot of help, and the Panthers aren't really helping him as best as they could. I will give a shout out to Xavier Legarrette, the wide receiver for the Panthers. He's showing some good flashes for the Panthers. And I also love his press conferences because he just talks so funny, man. It's just
Is that the one with the deep Southern accent?
It's the deep Southern accent where he talks like he doesn't
really say words.
He doesn't space out his words.
Right. So, it's just a giant conglomerate. Yes. I've heard him speak before.
I love him, man. And he's a rookie too. The Panthers got him in the first round this year at the 32nd pick. So, he's showing some flashes, and I'm like, okay, it's something positive, right? And again, for teams that are trying to rebuild, don't look for wins, look for growth.
Right. Look for things to work with.
Exactly.
Film for these two teams should be so in depth. It's who is doing their job right, who is running their routes right, who is doing. It's the
little things.
It's the fundamentals. Mm-hmm. Who's running the fundamentals correctly, so that can help us become a better team, so we can make something special happen. And that was why we always sang our praises to Ron Rivera in the early onsets of the Commanders, is he was bent on the fundamentals of the game.
Mm-hmm.
He took out all the bullshit that was in the playbook beforehand, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to run the ball effectively, we're going to have a strong offensive line, and we're going to pass effectively as well. It's not going to be anything fancy. Jet sweeps, fuck that shit. Triple read option, blah, blah, blah. It got them to where they were, where they now can do the extended stuff, the triple reads, the read options, the deep ball passes. That's what these two teams need. They need to get away from all the flashy and get back down to what makes this game work. What is the fundamental foundation of this game? Solid run game, solid offensive line, solid defense. Have a good tight end, one or two receivers that can run routes. You have to do the things right before you can become the special.
No,
it's just what these two teams need.
No, I 100% agree with you. Fundamentals.
Right. Fundamentally, these teams are totally unsound, and that's on coaching. And, they start to the top. These teams are lost on the field, and it's because they aren't being taught correctly on how to do the simple things right.
And I don't think anything that we've said has really come to a surprise of anyone, right?
No.
Because, we see the teams week in and week out, and we see what they put on the field. And I think that's why a lot of people didn't really want or care for this game, right? But it's nice to look at why and understand why and to learn from why, and hopefully understand that these teams, they don't. It doesn't, like we said before, it doesn't take long to be good in this league. It just just a couple wins and a couple moments here and there, it could change a whole season. Just look at Washington this year, right? Who would have thought, right? Who would have fucking thought? Look at the Lions, right? It took a couple years, but they trusted the process too.
Right. Look at the Chargers.
That's the thing. Is you got to trust the process, and you gotta. It starts with you got to have a voice in the locker room at your head coach, and it's got to trickle down from there.
Right. The coach has to have someone on that he can abide by, that can make sure the message is going around. Someone on both of these teams needs to step up. If maybe, I know they just extended Kamara. It's a good extension, but again, he's older now. He's more weathered. Still playing great. Not going to take that away from him. He's still playing great. He's still playing like a workhorse. You guys keep losing games, you're going to watch the wind get sucked out of his sails real quick.
He's the only real productive one on that offense right now.
That's the thing.
Alvin Kamara, and that's it.
Right, it's Alvin Kamara and Party, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
Especially when your defense lets up 30 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
You can't expect a running back to put up 30 points. It's just not going to happen. It's simply not going to happen. Maybe it'll happen once every couple seasons that you have a running back that has a enormous game and has 4 touchdowns to himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's not common, man. And
it barely happens.
I like Alvin Kamara, but man, again, he's not scoring 6 touchdowns on Christmas Day.
It's not happening. It's not happening.
that day, it was a great day when it happened, right? But it
couldn't do it again if you tried.
Nope.
Especially now with this team that you have.
No. Oh man. But CP, any final thoughts on this game?
Again, take what you see on the field with a grain of salt. And if you got yourselves watching this game saying, "Oh, these two teams suck," no, that's really not what it is. Think about it as, this is the difference between a team that's ready and a team that has no identity. You want to see teams that have identities? Look at Buffalo and Miami. They have identities. You know what they are. These two teams have no idea what they are. So take a deeper look at what's on the field and start looking for the positives on both sides for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure you'll find something where it's like, oh, that was flashy. That was cool. That was a really good play. So you can start finding positives out of a game like this.
Absolutely, and I think that's well said. Let's look at the again, it may be an ugly game, but I think that this is going to be an enjoyable game to watch, and there's going to be a lot of positive through the negative, if that makes any sense.
Well, there's silver linings in all things, right?
Exactly.
Both of these teams
I was
are
looking for that.
there's silver linings in all things. They're neck deep in rebuilds, the both of them, but they have really good athletes on both sides, and someone can just make a play, and it sparks something.
All it takes is one play
All it takes is one
to just change a whole season, and that's it.
to change the trajectory of a team
Exactly.
for years.
Yep.
It could be the one set point.
It just takes one.
Right.
So, with that, everybody, that is the second game that CP and I wanted to talk about. So, CP, you're stretching right now, man?
I'm stretching.
You tired, man?
No, I got an itch in my neck. I was
like, because we gotta pick some games, man.
Let's do it.
You ready to pick some games?
Yeah,
let's do it. Let's do it, my son. So let's start Thursday night, Halloween in the MetLife. Houston Texans coming to play the New York Jets. CP, who you got?
The first elimination from playoff contention is going to happen Thursday night. The Jets are going to lose. Houston's going to win in spooky fashion.
It is spooky season, and this season's looking like a nightmare for the Jets fans this season. And we're sorry, guys, but I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm going to go with the Texans on this one. Let's not overthink this. Texans over the Jets.
Right. It's pretty clear cut.
Okay, but CP, let's move to Sunday slate of games, and let's go to Carolina. And let's pick that game. The Saints and Panthers in the Silver Lining Bowl. Who you got?
Silver and gold. You're going to have to give me New Orleans. The second elimination of the week is going to be Carolina. They're going to fall to 1-8, and their season is going to be done.
Ooh. Yeah, that's... I'm going to take the Panthers on this one.
Ooh, okay.
Anything could happen. Divisional game. I think Bryce Young gets another crack at the Saints, who are really struggling to score. So I think Saints are going to play kind of to Carolina's level, but I'll take Carolina to beat the Saints, which means the Saints drop down to last in that division, man. But,
yeah.
But hey, again, one game difference between the two of them. Let's move to the MetLife again. This time, where the Washington Commanders come in to play the New York Giants. CP, who you got for this one?
Got to give me Washington. Giants fall to 2-7, and again, playoff contention is going to be hurt. There's going to be a lot of teams hurt this week.
Yeah, it's G-men have not been playing good. They really struggled against your Steelers, but the Steelers are a good team. But Washington's a really good team this year, man.
They're dangerous right now.
I'm gonna go with the Commanders to beat the Giants. Sorry, G-men. Let's move to Buffalo, the last New York team, where Miami comes into town to play the Bills, man. So, CP, who you got for this one?
Give me Buffalo. You can't stop. They're an unstoppable force right now, and Miami is not an immovable object.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Buffalo as well. I'm looking
hard to vote against them.
Yeah, I want Miami to win. I want their season to be alive, man. Buffalo and Josh Allen, he just cooks the Fins year in and year out.
Like seamlessly.
So I'm going to go with Buffalo. Let's move to Cleveland, where the Chargers take on the Browns. I think this is a very interesting game. Almost wanted to talk this one, but CP, who you got for this one?
I think you have to give me the Chargers on this one. I think this could turn out to be a shootout, though. I think this could really be like a lights out game if Jameis Winston comes out the way he came out against you guys. He puts up another 350-yard game. Browns may be something to talk about.
Yeah. I'm going to take Cleveland on this one. I liked what I saw out of Jameis last week. He gets another week under, with starting reps. And they really opened up that offense, man. But as much as, I know the Ravens beat themselves too, but Cleveland just played better. And I think Cleveland this week, if this was Deshaun Watson, I would have taken the Chargers. But I liked what I saw from Jameis. I'm gonna take Cleveland. Let's move to Tennessee, where the Patriots take on the Titans. CP, who you got for this?
The next elimination on the board is Tennessee. New England is going to win this game.
Ooh, man, this is a tough one. This is a coin flip. I'm gonna go with New England as well. I think they're just playing a little bit better than the
Not
Titans.
much, but good enough.
Not much, and I gotta say Drake May is looking productive, and I think him under New England is good, but I know he didn't finish last week's game. He went into concussion protocol, if I'm not mistaken. But Jacoby Brissett, again, proven veteran, who's been on New England plenty of times before. So I'm going to take New England over the Titans.
Okay.
Let's move to Atlanta, where the Cowboys take on the Falcons. Oh man, Jerry, them boys. What's going on with them boys? But see who we got.
Give me Atlanta. This should be a roll. I don't see Dallas stepping anywhere close to Atlanta right now. This should be a statement win.
I'm going to take Atlanta too. I think we're going to have another great Jerry Jones picture that's just going to be a meme, and I'm excited for that.
Just staring bleakly into the abyss. Just the forever stare.
I'm loving it. Okay, I'm taking Atlanta. Let's move to Cincinnati, where the Raiders come to play the Bengals. I'm going to take the Bengals on this one. But CP, who you got?
Yeah, you have to give me the Bengals. I think the Raiders are going to be the next one eliminated from. I think a lot of teams get eliminated from playoff contention this week.
I was going to say
7 losses is hard, man. That's hard.
I know. I think what was it? You picked like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams to get eliminated this week. Ah, man, we shall see, man.
Well, yeah, because Carolina would fall to 1-8, so they're gone.
Yep, Carolina, both New York teams.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's possible, man. It's definitely possible. But let's move to 2 teams that are not going to be eliminated if they lose this week. The Broncos coming to play the Ravens. CP, who you got?
You're gonna have to give me Baltimore, but don't sleep on Denver, man. They will play. They're gonna play you guys tough. This is gonna be a very tough game.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. I'm still going to take the Ravens, but yeah, this is going to be a very hard-fought game, and I'm excited for it. I think this will be a good one. Let's move to Arizona, where the Bears come to play the Cardinals. CP, who you got for this one?
Give me Arizona again. Caleb Williams. If you have under 50 yards and going into the second half, Arizona's going to run all over you. This team is scrappy, and they know how to score points in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't be the Chicago defense is menacing, but if you can't match their speed for points, then it's going to get ugly. You got to give me Arizona.
Yeah. I'm going to take Arizona as well. Despite the new Call of Duty dropping last weekend, I'm going to take the Cardinals to beat the Bears.
Mandatory film sessions.
Still boggles my mind, man. Oh, man. Let's move to Philly, where the Jags come into town to play the Eagles. I got the Eagles on this. I think they move on a 4-game win streak. See if you going the same thing?
Yeah, elimination number 4. Jacksonville is gone. Sorry, 7 losses.
Sorry, Mikey, man. It's ain't looking good for the Jags.
No.
Let's move to Seattle, where the Rams come to play the Seahawks in a divisional round matchup. It should be very interesting. CP, who you got for this one?
I think you have to give me the Rams for 2 in a row. Then Cooper Kupp being back is a huge presence. I don't know if Metcalf is playing. I remember he had an MCL sprain. He may still be out. So I'm gonna have to give me the Rams.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Rams as well. I think that momentum's on their side right now. They really kind of saved their season with the last 2 weeks. They won 2 weeks ago against the Raiders. They also won last week against the Vikings. So They win this game, they move to a 3-game win streak, keep their season alive. I'll take the Rams.
Yeah.
Let's move to Green Bay, what could be the potential game of the week. The Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. CP, who you got, man?
This one's tough.
This one is really tough.
I think you're going to have to give me Detroit, but it's going to be dependent on if Jordan Love plays. If Jordan Love plays, Green Bay could absolutely steal this game. Malik Willis, that's a tall order for you, pal. I don't think you've played a team like this yet.
Yeah, this is a tough one, man. I can see this go either way. This is really tough. I'm going to go with Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
I just, again, kind of up in the air with Jordan Love playing. If he plays or Malik Willis plays, I think that Matt LaFleur can really coach well against Detroit. Last year on Thanksgiving Day, Packers came into town, and I know you and I, we were on air.
We spoke that game.
Talking about how Detroit's going to steamroll them, and then it was the opposite. Green Bay steamrolled Detroit. So I think Matt LaFleur has a good scheme against Dan Campbell's systems, and I'm very interested to see how this chess match is going to play out.
Love it.
Okay, which brings us to the Sunday night primetime game. The Indianapolis Colts against the Minnesota Vikings. CP, who you got for this one?
In Minnesota, Joe Flacco is the starter for Indy. Give me the Vikings. I'm going to hope that the loss last week wasn't like a faceplant onto planet Earth, and they're still going to continue to play well and win games that they need to win. So give me the Vikings.
Man, I am torn on this one right now. I honestly haven't thought about this one. I guess I will take Minnesota as well. I think, again, I like Joe Flacco on the Colts, but I haven't seen enough out of that Indy defense to really trust it, especially against Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones,
Jordan Addison,
and just a plethora of weapons. I'm going to take the Vikings to beat the Colts. Which then brings us to the Monday night primetime game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming to Kansas City to play the undefeated Chiefs. CP, who you got?
You're going to have to give me the Chiefs. In Arrowhead, Monday night, beaten and broken Buccaneer team on offense. This could have potentially been one of the best games of the year. But with the absence of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, it's a totally different Buccaneers offense, and I don't think they could stand with that Chiefs right now.
Yeah, this is a tough one because if Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were playing, I would pick the Bucs.
Totally.
I'll be
100%.
I'll be very honest there. But their absence does have a pause for concern. They were able to put up 26 last week. A lot of that was through the ground. But Baker still played well. Baker's still a really good quarterback for this team. And I think that they're going to have to really, if the Bucs are going to win, they're going to have to lean on Rachaad White and Bruce Irving, the running back tandem. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. I just think that they just have that magic that's just hard to win against. Also the refs, but
especially at home.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I'll take the Chiefs Monday night.
Cool. Well, there you have it, guys. There's our picks for the week. Please leave a like, comment. If you want to get on for the rest of the season, we still have a couple of slots open. Please message either John or myself, and we will get you on. Be sure to turn in next week because we should be having a guest on, and we will be talking the Bears. There's a lot to unpack there. Everyone knows I have some opinions on the Bears, and that should be an interesting conversation.
Until then, we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.